Rediscovering Gita for the Modern World by Shrikant Soman. Based on essays on Gita by Sri Aurobindo. Chapter 7 continued. The Creed of the Aryan Fighter. Continued from the previous episode 59. Why a God-man fights, the Indian Creed of Active Compassion. Current episode 60. The Folly of an Egoistic Heart. Why Arjuna's pity is not compassion. Beyond pity, Krishna's rebuke of a hero's weakness. Clearing the clutter, Krishna's strategic plan for divine instruction. Key takeaways. Arjuna's pity is self-pity. The passage argues that Arjuna's emotional state is not true compassion, but an ignoble form of self-pity, a higher law for the divine man. Unlike an ordinary person, a divine man like Arjuna must not act based on emotions or ego, but must instead ascend from strength to fulfill his higher mission. The work that must be done. Arjuna's only right is to perform his work that must be done, kartavyam karm, as a God-sent agent of destiny, ignoring the claims of his egoistic heart and reason. The four claims of refusal. Arjuna attempts to justify his inaction with four egocentric claims: a nervous aversion to slaughter, sorrow for the lives lost, moral objections to killing gurus, and a belief in the futility of the act. Krishna's strategic teaching. Krishna's method is a deliberate, step-by-step process of first dismantling Arjuna's emotional and intellectual justifications to create a space for the higher law of action. Main passage. The motive force which actuates Arjuna in the rejection of his work and mission is not true compassion as explained above. That is not compassion, but an impotence full of weak self-pity, a recoil from the mental suffering which his act must give rise to on himself. This is clearly reflected in the statement of Arjuna. I see not what shall thrust from me the sorrow that dries up the senses. Of all things, self-pity is among the most ignoble and un-Aryan of moods. Even the expression of pity for others is also a form of self-indulgence. It is the physical shrinking of the nerves from the act of slaughter. It is the egoistic emotional shrinking of the heart from the destruction of the Dhritarashtrians, because they are one's own people, and without them life will be empty. This pity is a weakness of the mind and senses. It is a weakness which may well be beneficial to men of a lower grade of development. These people have to be weak because otherwise they will be hard and cruel. They have to cure the harsher by the gentler forms of sensational egoism. They have to call in tamas, the weak principle, to help sattva, the principle of light. This is required in order to quell the strength and excess of their rajasic passions. But surely this is not the way for the Aryan man who is having a higher level of all-round development. He has to grow not from weakness, but by an ascension from strength to strength. Arjuna's is a special case. He is the divine man, the master man in the making, and as such, he has been chosen by the gods. He has a mission to accomplish. He has God beside him in his chariot. He has the heavenly bow Gandiva in his hand. He has the champions of unrighteousness, the opponents of the divine leading of the world in his front as his enemies. He does not possess a right to determine what he shall do or not do according to his emotions and his passions, or to shrink from unnecessary destruction by the claim of his egoistic heart and reason, or to decline his work because it will bring sorrow and emptiness to his life, or to lose interest because its earthly result has no value to him in the absence of the thousands who must perish. All that is a weak falling from his higher nature. He has to see only the work that must be done, kartavyam karma. He has to hear only the divine command breathed through his warrior nature. He has to feel only for the world and the destiny of mankind calling to him as its God-sent man to assist its march and clear its path of the dark armies that beset it. Arjuna in his reply to Krishna admits the rebuke. However, he still strives against and refuses the command to fight. He is aware of his weakness and yet accepts his subjection to it. The poverty of spirit has destroyed his heroic nature. His whole consciousness is confused in its view of right and wrong. He also accepts the divine friend as his teacher. At the same time, the emotional and intellectual structure which has served as solid base for his sense of righteousness has been entirely cast down. Now he is not in a position to accept a command which seems to appeal only to his old standpoint and gives him no new basis of action. Still, he attempts to justify his refusal of the work by putting forward in its support the following. The claim of his nervous and sensational being which shrinks from the slaughter with the sequel of blood-stained enjoyments. The claim of his heart which recoils from the sorrow and emptiness of life that will follow his act. The claim of his customary moral notions which are appalled by the necessity of slaying his gurus Bhishma and Drona. The claims of his reason which sees no good but only evil results of the terrible and violent work assigned to him. He is resolved that on the old basis of thought and motive he will not fight. He now awaits in silence the answer to objections that seem to him without any solution. Krishna's first task is to destroy these claims of Arjuna's. This is necessary to make a room in Arjuna's mind before he proceeds to reveal to him the higher law. This higher law will transcend all egoistic motives of actions. Had Krishna tried to explain to Arjuna these higher laws without first clearing the clutter in Arjuna's mind, it would have failed to make any impact. We should note here that Krishna is going in a very systematic step-by-step and planned way in bringing around Arjuna to the core of his teaching, as we shall see further.